Hello everyone, my name is Balasaheb Kale. I am Assistant Professor, Department of Botany, S.V.K.T College, Deolari Camp, Nashik. So today's session we will discuss Bryophytes. So before the starting the today's topic, there is a discuss about a recap, or we discuss about the previous point. First is in previous lecture we discuss introduction of the algae, then characteristic of the algae, and then economical of the importance of the algae. So today's session agenda is we will discuss in today's session terms or meaning of the Bryophyta, then general characteristic of the Bryophyta, and economical importance of the Bryophyta. So there is a three important points is very important when you study about the Bryophyta or Bryophytal members. So first point is what is the Bryophyta? So bryo means the bryon, means the mosses, and phyton means the plants. So we call as simply moss is the plant. So Bryophyta is the Greek word. Their meaning is moss is plant. So Bryophyta includes three different classes: horn rots, liver rots, and mosses. So there is a three classes for Bryophyta. In that different characteristic of the Bryophyta, that point we will discuss in coming few slides. But here is some characteristic. First characters. Bryophyta is the cryptogamic organism. So what is cryptogams? Cryptogams means that plant don't have flower. So we call as a cryptogamic plants. They have lack or absent of the vascular bundle. So vascular bundle is one of the characteristic of the higher plants. For example, gymnospermic plants and angiospermic plants. So that kind of the characters completely absent in the Bryophytic members. So this is one of the characteristic of the, or we call as a key characteristic of the Bryophyta. In that they don't have proper flower or seeds. So flower or seeds, this is the characteristic of the angiospermic plant, and this is the Bryophyta. So this is the one of the characteristic. Then next is the feed. So which feed in there is a Bryophyta studied. So there is a feed is the bryology. We call as a feed of the Bryophyta is called as a bryology. So here is an image. There is a three different photos of classes of the Bryophyta. First one is the horn rots, liver rots. Second one is the liver rots, and third one is the mosses. There is a three classes of the Bryophyta observed in the nature or in the worldwide in the different continents of the world. Now we start the general characteristic of the Bryophyta. So point to point we will discuss of the general characteristic of the Bryophyta. So first characteristic is plants occurs damps and shades. So this plant habitat majorly, what is the habitat? So habitat is nothing but the where is the plant grow. So this plant grow in the damp or shady places. So damp means that area have water content or moist area, and shady places, that means they require less amount of the sunlight. Okay, this is the one of the key characteristic of the habitat of the Bryophyta members. Next characteristic, there is a plant body thallus in nature. So what is thallus? So thallus is one of the terminology when you studied about the Bryophyta members. So what is thallus? Thallus is nothing but you don't or you cannot distinguish plant body into the root, stem, or leaves. So that is called as a thallus structure. So that kind of structure observed in the angiospermic plants or gymnospermic plant. Okay, but in the Bryophyta members, this characteristic is completely absent. That's why we call as this is the thallus in nature. Next characteristic, there is that thallus attached to the substratum, or we call as a soil substratum, and inside the soil there is a rhizoid-like structure, or we call as a root-like structure is nothing but the rhizoids. So what is their function? Their function is nothing but the absorbing the water and mineral from the soil, but this is the not the true roots. So that's why you call as it is a root-like structure. So next there is a two type of the rhizoids, unicellular and multicellular. Okay, in the multicellular there is a tuberculate rhizoid present. The next characteristic, they lack the vegetative structure such as root, stem, leaves. Okay, this point we already discussed in the thallus point. So that kind of structure is completely absent in the Bryophyta members because they are cryptogamic in nature. Plants lack the vascular bundle. So vascular bundle is one of the important characteristic present in the angiospermic plant and some members of the gymnospermic plants, but well developed vascular bundles or vascular tissue system in the angiospermic plant. So there is a two type of the vascular bundles or vascular tissues. There is a xylem and phloem. So there is a different characteristic or different function of the xylem and phloem. So what is the function of the xylem? Xylem is the part of the vascular bundle and they conduct the water and mineral from root to the other parts of the plants. So there is a xylem. And what is the phloem? So phloem also one of the part of the vascular bundle and there is also the conducting tissue system and their function is the transferring the or conducting the food material in the form of the sugar from leaves to the other parts of the plants where they are required. When you consider as a photosynthetic region is the leaves that time. Okay. Next is the Bryophyta show the alternation of the generation. So this is the one of the key characteristic observed in the Bryophyta. There is the alternation of the generation. So what is the alternation of generation? Here is a life cycle of the Bryophyta. First stage, suppose first stage is the gametophyte. After the gametophyte, sporophyte will become. After the sporophyte, again gametophyte come. Then gametophyte, again sporophyte come. So this is the continuously alternatively two stages come in the life cycle of the Bryophyta members. That is called as we call it as alternation of the generation. So in the alternation of generation, gametophytes, there is a two gametes present, male sex organ, female sex organ, and in sporophytic there is a spore are involves. So this is the alternation of the generation. So next characteristic of the Bryophyta members, there is a dominant part is the gametophyte. When you studied about alternation of generation, in that gametophyte and sporophytic stage present, but in the gametophyte is the dominant stage as compared to the sporophyte. Okay. Then thalloid gametophyte is differentiated into rhizoids, axis and leaves. Okay. So this is one of the characteristic. Then gametophyte is the multicellular sex organs and there is a photosynthetic in nature. So majorly gametophytes observed in the upper layer or upper portion of the thallus. They are green in nature and their function is the photosynthesis. So in that first sex organ is the antheridium. So antheridium is the male sex organ observed or present in the Bryophyta members. So there is in the antheridium there is a antherozoids presence. So antherozoids have the biflagella. So biflagella, what is their why they are contain the biflagella or flagella? Because movement purpose. So there is a reproduction purpose. During the reproduction, that male sex organ, for example antherozoids, they are travel from male part or male region to the female region, we call it as a archegonium, because archegonium cannot move. There is a non-movable sex organ. That's why male sex organ in that antherozoids move using the biflagella in water current, and their destination is the female sex organ. There is a archegonium. Okay, so archegonium is the female sex organs. So here is a one important characters. Here is a water. So during the reproduction, water is necessary. Without water, there is a Bryophyta members cannot reproduce or their fertilization cannot take place. So antherozoids are the egg to fuse to the zygote. Okay, so when fuse the eggs, then final zygote get developed. This is the step of the reproduction of the Bryophyta members. After the development of the zygote, then multicellular organs get developed. That is called as a sporophyte. We simply call it as suppose there is a male sex organ, antherozoids, female sex organs, archegonium. Then in the male organ, then in male reproductive organ, antherozoids present. So antherozoids get mature, they liberate in water. Okay, through water current they move towards the female sex organ, we call as archegonium, and then in archegonium they get fused, then develop. After the fusing, reproduction take place. After the reproduction, zygote get developed. After zygote get divide multiply, and finally multicellular organs get developed, that is called as a sporophyte. So sporophyte is one of the second stage of the alternation of the generation. Here is a alternation of generation coming from coming from gametophyte to sporophyte. So here is the next characteristic of the Bryophyta. So Bryophyta is a semi-parasitic in nature. It's depend on the gametophyte for its nutrition. So this is one of the characteristic of the Bryophyta. Okay, next characteristic is the cells of sporophytes undergo meiosis to form haploid gametophyte, which form the gametophyte. So here is a here is a meiosis process take place. So meiosis and mitosis, I think all of you know, this is the cellular process, cell division process. Okay, so mitosis generally happen in the vegetative stage, vegetative cells, and meiosis happen in the reproductive cells. Okay, so this is the cell division parts. This part we cannot discuss because this today's topic is regarding to the vegetative ecological point of view, or we call as a taxonomical point of view. This is not the part of the cell biology. So next characteristic, it's the juvenile gametophyte stage is the protonema. So protonema is one of the stage observed in the gametophyte of the many of the Bryophyta members. So next is the sporophytic is differentiated into food, seta, and capsule. Okay, when you talk about the mosses, generally this stage often observed in the mosses. There is a first is the foot. There is a lower part that attached to the soil part or substratum parts. Next is a seta. So seta is attached to the foot region, and above the seta there is a capsule present, and inside the capsule there is a spore present, and when that spore get mature, they liberate in the environment and they get germinate and develop again gametophyte stage. So this is the characteristic of the Bryophyta members. Okay, so there is a first point we covered, that is the terminology. This is the one part, and second one is the characteristic of the Bryophyta. So now we move towards the economical importance of the Bryophyta. So economical importance is very important. Why they are important? Because that plant or whole plant or a part of the plant used in different field such as medicine, food, and other part. Okay, so we will discuss that part pointly. First is the medicinal field. So medicinal uses of the Bryophyta in different field such as medical field, pharmacy field, pharmacognosy field, pharmacology field. Okay, so this is the part, or this is the branches of the medicines. Okay, so in the Bryophyta use, first example is sphagnum. So sphagnum is one of the mosses. It's belong to the mosses class, and their structure is the fibrous like structure or thread like structure. Okay, so that's why they use in as a surgical dressing purpose. Okay, that surgical dressing used in a ancient time, but today's there is a in the medicinal field they are used as a cotton. So cotton used as a dressing purpose, but ancient time the people or human being use the sphagnum moss as a surgical dressing because they have absorbed the water. Their ability to high amount, their ability to it's absorb the power of the water. They instantly absorb the water, or they instantly absorb the liquid material. They are the polar in nature, especially those liquid material polar in nature that absorb easily. So that's why sphagnum used as a surgical dressing. Okay, when cut take place any part of the human being, then apply the sphagnum on that cutted area, then that flowing the blood get stopped because that blood get blockage or blood get absorbed in the your sphagnum moss. Next is the Markensia. So Markensia is used as a medicinal purpose in the curing the tuberculosis of the liver. Okay, so or liver infection, tuberculosis or liver infection. So that this is cured using the Markensia. So Markensia is one of the Bryophyta as a medicinal purpose used in the different branches of the medicinal field. So next is the medicinal uses is it's the decoction of dried. Okay, so what is decoction? Decoction is nothing but the part of the Bryophyta get they are present in the water many of the days, and that in that that some substances present in the Bryophyta they get percolate in the water, and that body get delicate. Okay, delicate body, that part is nothing but the decoction, or that dried sphagnum used as a treatment of the hemorrhea and eye infection. So eye infection is one of the diseases or infection or abnormalities cured by the sphagnum or sphagnum moss. So next medicinal uses is the it's use and the dissolving the stone, okay, of the kidney. So in the kidney there is a present of the different salts. So their salt convert into the stones, and they get problem create in the kidney. They take place the pain. That pain is relief when they get dissolved. So polytrichum used as a dissolve that stone in the kidney of the human being or gallbladder. So antibiotic substances. So what is antibiotic? Antibiotic is nothing but the substance kill the bacteria, viruses or fungi, that is called as an antibiotic. There is some substances or some chemicals present in the Bryophyta members, for example Markensia or Riccia, that thalloid parts contain the antibiotic components, and that component kill the bacterial growth, fungal growth or the virus growth. So that purpose antibiotic use as a source of the Bryophyta members. Next characters in research. Okay, so in research also some mosses, liverworts use as a genetical purpose. So what is genetics? Genetics is nothing but the study of the genes. Okay, so there is what is their structure, how many type of the genes present in the, and how many number of chromosomes basically present in the particular Bryophyta. So there is a research or that study take place in the research. Next is a packaging material. Okay, when transport, during the transport there is a delicate material, for example glass material get damaged. So protecting that damage purpose, so outer side of the part they applying the some substances or some parts, in that there is a mosses present. So mosses get absorb the current or the mechanical current, and they get inside material, for example glasses or bulbs get saved or protected. So this is one of the economical importance of the mosses, or we call as a Bryophyta. Next economical importance is the food. In the food, as a source of the food, different Bryophyta use, for example mosses and some Riccia or we call as a Markensia also use as a food purpose or fodder purpose of human being as well as other animals, birds. Okay. Next is as an indicator plants. Okay, particular plants present in the field or in environment, there is a key purpose or key indicator. So same kind of the key indicator observed in the Bryophyta members, for example polytrichum. So where the polytrichum grow, that soil are the acidic in nature. So this is one of the environmental indicator or ecological indicator of the plants. Okay, next in seed bed. Okay, in seed bed, in today's condition, in today's era, there is some nurseries. In the nursery, there is a coco pit used as a supporting purpose or plantlet growth purpose. Okay, so instead of the coco pit, there is a Bryophyta, or for example sphagnum pit used. This is the alternative for the supporting of plant growth. There is one of the economical importance of the Bryophyta members. Okay, so that's all today's session. So there is a student assignments. So first question is, what is Bryophyta? Write general characteristic of the Bryophyta, and what is economical importance. So there is a 3 questions covers the today's session. Okay, so before the stop today's session, there is a summary definition of the Bryophyta. In today's session, we will discuss, we was discuss definition of the Bryophyta, general characteristic of the Bryophyta, and economical importance of the Bryophyta. Thank you.